Avengers Infinity War is finally here! The first half of the Marvel Cinematic Universe's 10-year culmination. 10 years. Or 6, if you started counting at the post-credit scene for the first Avengers movie. Either way, you're gonna feel old! After all of the buildup, I am thrilled to say that I had a great opening night experience watching Infinity War. For movie fans that did all the reading and understand those references, this film is a total blast. Packed with action, charm, serious emotion, inside jokes, callbacks, meetings, reunions, surprises, triumphs, heartbreaks, and deadly stakes. This is the ultimate Marvel crossover roller coaster ride. Having said all of that, unlike the first Avengers movie, Infinity War does not work well as a standalone film, because it represents the continued development and climax of all 18 of the previous Marvel movies. If you've seen and enjoyed most of them, you'll likely have a wonderful time, like I did. If you haven't seen half of them, then you might find Infinity War to be a confusing, bloated, long chore, lacking in a cohesive story and through line. Indeed, with so many characters to juggle, Infinity War is not quite perfectly balanced, as all things should be. The film is so concentrated on fan service and giving everyone a little time that it doesn't properly focus on developing its main players. It also won't hold your hand. You either understand why a moment is special or not. Additionally, comic book readers may not like how Thanos is portrayed in this movie. There's also some abrupt editing choices, and the fact that the film ends on a cliffhanger. This movie used to be called Avengers Infinity War Part 1. Honestly, I understand all of these criticisms and will discuss my in-depth thoughts on them shortly. A lot of tough love incoming! But for fans who did the homework and have invested 10 years into all of these characters, know that Avengers Infinity War somehow manages to give every one of them time to shine. Thanos is a fleshed out and imposing villainous presence, and
people getting jacked in this movie. People are getting wiped out.
Marvel has guts! My friend and I were on the edge of our seats. This is the first movie in a long time that I was excited to watch again on opening weekend. I definitely recommend seeing this movie in the theater with a packed audience for their reactions. This review will contain spoilers for Acts 1 and 2. As usual, no big surprises or deaths will be mentioned, unless you consider the fact that there are deaths to be a spoiler, in which case sorry. But I will be diving deep into the film's plot and structure, as well as sharing my vague thoughts on the ending. A timestamp to skip to my star rating and pros cons chart is in the video description below. Avengers Infinity War takes place 2 years after the events of Captain America Civil War and Black Panther, and picks up right where Thor Ragnarok's credits scene left off. Thanos, a formidable purple titan, and his fanatically loyal children, dubbed the Black Order, are on a destructive quest to acquire all 6 Infinity Stones. Said to have been birthed at the creation of the universe, these stones give their bearer control over their respective celestial properties: time, space, soul, mind, reality, and power. If Thanos finds all 6 and places them upon his Infinity Gauntlet, he will control the universe itself, possessing the ability to wipe out life on a scale hitherto undreamt of. Can the scattered and divided former members of the Avengers, as well as the self-proclaimed Guardians of the Galaxy, all unite to make a stand, halt Thanos, and save all of existence? And at what price? Avengers Infinity War is structured around 4 superhero groups attempting to thwart Thanos and his minions from retrieving 4 of the Infinity Stones. They're divided up into Team Iron Man, Team Thor, Team Star-Lord, and Team Captain America. The movie is mostly from the hero's point of view, but there are also a few scenes from Team Thanos' perspective, kinda. That's up to 5 plot threads it has to balance throughout its runtime, with quite a few of them converging together, then splitting off, then joining up with another one. To avoid disorienting the audience as much as possible, especially with so many characters to keep track of, like 70, the movie is edited into fat chunks. Similar to the Lord of the Rings sequels, Infinity War chooses to devote a couple of 5 to 15 minute long scenes to each group, one at a time. All intercutting between different locations and teams is kept to a bare minimum until the finale. What does that mean? That means Infinity War is still introducing main characters at what felt like 40 minutes into the movie. Spending so much time on each team makes it easier to get to know the characters. But I can imagine casual, not Marvel fans growing frustrated. Why are they still adding more characters? Like, alright, I'm really digging this Thor and Thanos movie. And this Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Hulk, and Spider-Man movie. Oh, okay. I guess this is also a Guardians movie. Cool! Wait, who are these two making out in a hotel room? When is Black Panther showing up? Infinity War's first act structure keeps things stabilized, but impatience may set in for audience members that really only care about one or two of the superheroes. People who only saw the Black Panther movie just recently may be incredibly disappointed and confused. He doesn't make an appearance until an hour in, and even then, it's just a brief tease before he's seen again at the climax. But that is more of a fault to the marketing team, if anything. Still, it might have been better to set up all of the main character groups quicker. Avengers 1 took a while to introduce all its heroes too, but it at least did so within the first 30 minutes, and it had proper transitions. Black Widow has to go get the big guy. Her squad is worried that they can't control the big guy. Nick Fury is then being lectured about controlling the Avengers, then says war is won by soldiers. Enter Captain America, the super soldier. In a conversation about Howard Stark, Captain America says that the Tesseract should have been left at the bottom of the ocean. Boom! Cut to Tony Stark at the bottom of the Pacific. Everything flows. In Infinity War, these clever transitional moments are passed up in favor of the chunk technique. Tony Stark's New York introduction and action scene play out in full for just over 15 minutes. Instead of, perhaps, cutting to Vision and Wanda's introduction and action scene partway through, which could have created a cohesive sense of a simultaneous global strike by the Black Order. Also, not knowing when the movie would cut back to the New York battle with Tony Stark would force the audience to actually pay attention to the Vision and Wanda scene. After 2 screenings, I've noticed that many people treat Vision and Wanda as bathroom break time. Which is not good, given the importance of their characters to the story. As a reference example, I know everybody has their buzz killed when the 2 Towers cuts away from Helm's Deep to a bunch of slow-talking old trees. But would you really want to watch those tree council scenes in one 8-minute segment following the Battle of Helm's Deep? Sure, the Ents, just like Wanda and Vision, have an action scene shortly after, but first-time viewers don't know that. They just recognize it as a lull that they can go take a piss during. Intercutting things that the audience is more interested in with things that they might be reluctant to watch is a good way of maintaining the audience's attention for whenever the things they are interested in come back. Okay, admittedly, I do actually prefer that these 2 action sequences are separate, but the Vision and Wanda setup does come at a bad time. There's the 15-minute extended Iron Man New York fight, followed by a comedic Guardians of the Galaxy breather, then a slow romantic scene between 2 lesser-known background characters. Not only are the introduction scenes still going on 40 minutes into the movie, they are also de-escalating in terms of your favorite characters. No offense to Vision and Wanda fans. Another plus about the first Avengers movie is that it made you eat your vegetables before dessert. After its main title, Black Widow is introduced first, and the film builds up to Iron Man being last. Maybe something similar could have worked here? Put the Vision and Wanda scene after the title card. On the other hand, this is the Marvel 10th anniversary special, and you want to begin with Iron Man, the one who started it all. And it's also pretty important to set up Gamora as early as possible too. With so many characters, this film's structure is a tough nut to crack, and I'm sure there were many debates and test screenings. Even still, some abrupt editing choices slip through the cracks. When the Avengers Infinity War title hits the screen with the triumphant, iconic horn theme music, it felt off. The original Avengers movie had a huge action scene, followed by a rising setup by Coulson. What do we do now? Boom! The Avengers! That's what we gonna do. Avengers Infinity War starts with a very extended 10-minute ominous conversation, a brief tussle, some jokes, then BAM! Title. I think there needed to be a better buildup of urgency and energy to lead into the Avengers theme music choice. Or swap that out with a more foreboding musical cue. Maybe have a dying side character or a regular Asgardian stand up to Thanos like that old man did to Loki in the first Avengers movie. Thanos could be like, "What could possibly stop me now?" Unleash his Power Stone and boom! Avengers Infinity War, they're gonna stop you! Cheesy? Yes! But Joss Whedon set a fun precedent for it. Actually, you know what? I think it's just the Wong and Doctor Strange sandwich humor that throws it off. I would have preferred if the serious tone had been maintained until the title was revealed. Also, I kinda wish that the attack on Xandar or Thor's ship were included. It stinks that so much time was given to setting up Xandar in Guardians of the Galaxy 1, and Glenn Close and John C. Reilly get snubbed. On the other hand, I really do dig the ominous opening tone. It's quite unique for a Marvel movie and effective, and there is plenty of action shortly after. You know, the Russo brothers actually made a disciplined choice not to include a beginning action scene. I'm sure the budget was already growing out of control without it. Anyway, the editing. Later, when Thor meets the Guardians of the Galaxy, there is an odd cut from him amusingly asking, "Who the hell are you guys?" With the audience anticipating a humorous reaction from Thor when he learns their name, but instead, we cut straight to Gamora giving a somber monologue about how she knows Thanos? What? If you're going to leave the question hanging there for humor, at least cut to a different location entirely, not to another conversation with a totally different tone at a later time in the same location. It's a little abrupt. In another instance, the movie cuts from a present-day scene to a flashback without context! Maybe it was meant to be a surprise flashback. Why? Does everything need to be a surprise? With so many characters and plot elements to juggle already, you probably don't want the audience to have to start questioning if we're watching the past or the present, too. This needed to be clear, in my opinion. Then there's a scene where one character makes an emotional promise to another character, and literally the very next scene, that promise is tested, which felt really rushed. Usually, important stuff like that is given a few scenes to marinate or fade out of the audience's short-term memory, so we can later be like, "Oh yeah!" With the current movie structure, it's kinda awkward when the character reminds the other character about that promise. It's only been a few minutes! Kids, what I'm trying to say is, editing and story assembly is full of hard decisions. I really enjoyed Infinity War's content, and while the second half really clicks, I'm not fully sold on its first half structure and how it balances the characters. If you haven't watched most of the 18 previous movies, then you'll have little context for all of the heroes' relationships, beefs, catchphrases, inside jokes, and relative power limits. To Infinity War's credit, this chunky structure does allow it to do a great job of catching the viewer up to speed on each hero's personalities and abilities naturally in the film's first half. Though, it may still prove to be sensory overload for the casual moviegoer who just wants a reason to care. Stopping Thanos is the plot. What's the story? Well, I'd say that there are 4 main character arcs. 1. Tony Stark coping with destiny finally arriving. 2. Thanos and Gamora dealing with their unresolved father-daughter dysfunction. 3. Thor redirecting his past grief into determination. And 4. Vision and Wanda's star-crossed romance. In order of success, I'd say it's Thanos and Gamora first, Iron Man second, Thor third, and Vision and Wanda last. Avengers Infinity War is essentially Thanos, an Avengers movie. So I'm glad that his and Gamora's plotlines received the most attention. Thanos himself, played fantastically by Josh Brolin, proves to be an incredibly imposing force to be reckoned with. Though, surprisingly, he can also be quite subdued and emotional. Thanos views what he's doing as a benevolent act, passionately describing the universe's finite resources being picked dry by the ever-multiplying life forms. Dude believes in depopulation for the greater good, and his presentation and sympathetic backstory just barely made me care. But I think a few more reference cases and citations would have helped. I mean, isn't the universe actually infinitely expanding? There are way more solutions to his problems, especially if someone were to get all the Infinity Stones. Hey, I went with it. For me, Thanos' performance was strong enough to sell it. He is called the Mad Titan, after all. Maybe that's because he didn't think this through. Whereas, while I'm not a comic book reader, I heard his motivation in the graphic novels was to literally court death. Death being a deadly beautiful woman whom he wanted to impress with mass genocide. That is all gone here. Thanos is pulling his punches and using the stones he has sparingly, though in pretty cool ways. In Avengers Infinity War, Thanos is not a straight up maniacal bad guy, taking pleasure in his destruction, as was foreshadowed by the dialogue and his mischievous grin in the first Avengers movie. He's now inconsistently enjoying himself, but also only trying to do what is best for the universe. You can't have both, but that may be the point. This inconsistency between his perceived benevolence and his sadistic pleasure is what makes him so unpredictable and intimidating. The disconnect between his illogical motivations and his actions might be intentional to make him more psychotic and scary. Thanos is just a misunderstood mass murderer. Aww. I guess. Oh dear. It's better if you don't think about it. Or excuse Thanos as sincerely conflicted and, indeed, mad. But I did want to know more. How powerful is a Titan naturally? I almost wish there were a pre-Marvel logo prologue about Thanos' upbringing. What's with the whole cult of Thanos religion thing? That AEmovieguy was an interesting wizard fanatic of his. I would have liked to have heard more about why the Black Order is fighting by Thanos' side. What do they get out of this? Is it only that they are his subservient children? AEmovieguy fully bought into it. Look, it is not vital information. Thanos is already way more fleshed out than other Marvel villains, and that the movie got me so interested should be taken as a positive. Gamora, unfortunately, isn't introduced for nearly half an hour, making her story feel tightly packed. She's a main character from Guardians of the Galaxy and a daughter of Thanos. Perhaps she deserved more priority. Her relationship with Thanos is given just enough time to properly develop and register. Maybe one more flashback of Gamora as a teenager fighting her sister Nebula to the death for Thanos' pleasure would have added better context for all of their relationships in this movie. Zoe Saldana as Gamora turns in a strong, heartfelt performance. She can be a bit inconsistent at times. There's a torture scene in which her reaction was an underplayed hair flip, head tilt. Come on, stop it. But for the rest of the film, she is outstanding in her passionate interactions. Iron Man's character arc has an okay opening and good conclusion, but his extreme paranoia and anxiety from Iron Man 3 and Age of Ultron is mostly missing in action for Infinity War, beyond two brief instances. I would have loved to have seen Tony Stark's cool facade fully break down at some point, particularly in front of Spider-Man, a kid for whom he's been a confident father figure. Alternatively, how about a moment of Tony's PTSD kicking in again and him asking Doctor Strange to not let Spider-Man walk in and see him like this? The idea of Peter Parker seeing a weaker side of his mentor. Or Tony Stark forcing back his panic attacks in the face of his greatest fears so as not to worry his surrogate son. That could have been powerful stuff. And it would have better set up for the ending too. Not to mention, Doctor Strange respecting Tony's wishes would have added some development between their relationship as well. I really like the idea that the person who promised Tony that he'd be there until the end, Captain America, isn't there. And now, Tony is suppressing his panic for Spider-Man's sake, and to impress his rival snarky rich guy Doctor Strange. And if Doctor Strange had seen that side of Tony, he wouldn't have gloated or held it over him. He would have instead silently protected the boy from seeing it. Then Stark would have thanked him sincerely afterwards. That would have been nice character growth. A turning point in Tony and Doctor Strange's relationship. Again, these continue to be cherry on top suggestions. I love the interplay between Tony, Doctor Strange, and Peter Parker throughout the film. Two egos clashing, Tony making balloon animal jokes about Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange calling Tony out as a douche. Spider-Man eager to help in a fight, and Tony being protective of him, but also open to his ideas. Really good character dynamics. Thor's development amounts to a couple of pep talks. Hey, I'm not knocking them. They were quite emotional and well performed. And he really needed that after all he lost in Thor Ragnarok. Loved it. It is pretty brief though. Finally, there's Scarlet Witch and Vision's romance. I really enjoyed their stolen moment together and the Scotland locale. But again, if you didn't see or care for them in Captain America Civil War, there's only one and a couple half scenes to establish the relationship in Infinity War. That is why I actually slightly prefer that their action scene was not intercut with the one from New York. It is important to show these two on their own, with Wanda willing to lay it all on the line for Vision. It's really good. Though, like I said, I think the scene needed to come earlier in the film's structure. Once you've hung out with the New York trio and the Guardians of the Galaxy, you may be resistant to give these two a chance. There is some Romeo and Juliet potential to their relationship. But I'm a Cap, and you're a Stark. It could never work. It would have been nice to have a couple more moments reinforcing their relationship throughout the film, because Vision has the Mind Stone in his head. If it's pulled out, he might die. It's a great source of couple drama and very important to the main plot. All four of these main storylines are intact, but spread out amongst the extended action scenes and fan service for all the other characters, paying off the legwork from 18 other films. This is why it all seems so convoluted. It is. There's a lack of focus on and development for the 6 main characters' arcs, which makes it seem like they aren't there. But they are. The audience just has to do its own mental editing to sort out who are most important amongst almost 70 characters. This movie was a huge task to balance, and I'm surprised that it worked so well for me, even in its current state. There are even small character arcs for side characters, such as Bruce Banner and Groot. And all of these are connected by a theme of sacrifice for the greater good. There's a contrast created between Thanos, who's willing to give up everything to succeed, and the Avengers, who are willing to sacrifice their own lives, but never the lives of one another. Despite the problems I brought up with structure, buried character arcs, and sketchy motivation, I think this strong theme execution, coupled with the performances and thrills, is what really won me over. Plus,
people getting jacked in this movie. People are getting wiped out.
This was by far my favorite aspect of Avengers Infinity War. It's made clear from the opening scene that any character can bite it at any time. There were a bunch of scenes during which my friend and I were quietly squirming and stating, they better not, they better not. And sometimes they did. The directors, Anthony and Joe Russo, mentioned in an interview that they modeled certain scenes after a horror movie. Well, it kind of felt like it. It got to the point where my friend and I were excitedly wincing and whispering, "No, don't do it! Get out of there! This is not the movie to be attempting your usual heroics! People getting jacked in this movie! Get out of there!" At one point, Thanos was appearing out of a rift, and because the rift took up the whole frame and the editing was ambiguous, I momentarily freaked out like, no, he's here? Then, oh thank God, he's somewhere else. My friend looked at me and laughed. We had a great time bracing ourselves and reacting with relief and disbelief, like, no, now Thanos gotta go. He gotta go. Whew. Parents, think twice about taking your younger children because some of this stuff is haunting and goosebump inducing. This pleases me. It really did put a smile on my face. I'm twisted like that though. Does that make me a bad person? Maybe. After 10 years of character buildup, it was nerve-wracking and thrilling. Amazing tension and stakes. Thank you, Marvel. The moments of silence and dread really stood out. There's a straight minute of suspenseful quiet as Tony listens for a noise. The buildup The screaming, the chaos, a street-level handheld perspective evoking Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds tripod arrival scene. I loved that Infinity War wasn't afraid to get serious and emotional quite often. Updates on how everyone has been and how their lives are going, catching each other up to speed and reacting to news with joy or frustration. This is truly a 10-year reunion. As a Marvel movie fan, I'm happy to see all these little touches and nods to continuity, and I'm sincerely impressed by how well the Russo brothers and their army of advisors understood all of the characters so well and blended them together. It was great to see all of these egos clashing for the first time, again, like in the original Avengers. Tony and Doctor Strange, Thor and Star-Lord. Even if Infinity War's core story suffers a bit due to all the excess. It's like you're watching the extended edition in the theater. Though, I noted scenes from the trailers were missing. Some were completely altered or fabricated to avoid spoilers in the marketing. Brilliant! And others likely deleted scenes, such as Black Widow and Bruce Banner catching up on their relationship in Wakanda. Or a scene of T'Challa having a private talk with Steve Rogers. T'Challa does get kind of shortchanged in this movie. Maybe they should have kept one of these conversations. Maybe the Black Widow, Bruce Banner, T'Challa, and Steve Rogers scenes could have added better, serious buildup of the stakes before the big battle. Again, like the Two Towers. What would you have me do? Look at my men. Thor will answer. Thor! Where was Thor when the Westfall fell? Where was Thor when our enemies closed in around us? Where was... No, my lord, Captain America. Thor will not come. Wakanda is alone. Something like that, you know? Of course, there is Marvel's trademark humor. In my first viewing, it was bordering on too much in the first half. Specifically, when Thor and Quill's personal tragedies are played for dick-measuring laughs. But it all was better the second time around and proved very necessary to endear us to the characters and balance out the dark subject matter later on. There are some very memorable jokes in this movie from Drax, Thor, Rocket, and even a great naive line from Captain America in the heat of battle. Fun callbacks to jokes from the previous films. For the most part, the comedy arrives just when it's needed most. Some things were unintentionally hilarious, such as Peter Dinklage's forced bassy voice with Shakespearean dialects. Boy, start the verse, boy. His long hair and his run also reminded me of Sweetums the Muppet. That's what I'm trying to tell you, boy. Oh, and Black Panther still ain't a hype man. He's got to project a bit more. Maybe not as much as me. In terms of action, Infinity War delivers. There are at least 4 big multi-phase action set pieces. My favorite action scene is probably the New York fight at the beginning, but that giant battle of Wakanda and showdown with Thanos, pretty cool. I love the way the heroes work together and combine their talents in this movie. Doctor Strange is blocking, making portals and platforms. Spider-Man is restraining and kicking to the face. Iron Man is blasting. Though, his materializing armor is just ridiculous at this point. Hey, at least his armor has been getting progressively more ridiculous, so it doesn't come out of nowhere, and I'm enjoying myself enough to just go with it. But his science has crossed into magic territory, as Thor might say. Dude can just materialize a giant shield and sword out of nowhere. You know, it was kind of more believable when he had to, like, suit up in a heavy gear. I don't know, it seemed like those are more durable than what I'm looking at right now. Also, I was a little disappointed that there wasn't a montage of Doctor Strange using the Time Stone in the battle against Thanos, like in his solo movie. Thanos, I've come to bargain. Thanos, I've come to bargain. Why not just strap him in a time loop? I don't know. The audience just has to take his word for it, or else the movie just can't progress. I'm willing to go with it. I'm having a good time. I'm interested to see where it goes, even if I don't fully buy it. Otherwise, Doctor Strange does get to strut his magic in impressive ways. Okoye, or Akuya, however you say it, gets to show off, but as a follow-up from my Black Panther review, her woo 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 theme didn't make the cut. Though I got a tag team match I didn't even know I wanted. Thank you. All of this action is accompanied by Alan Silvestri's wonderful score. Silvestri also scored Captain America 1 and Avengers 1, and sure enough, he brings his iconic Avengers theme back multiple times at incredibly crowd-pleasing moments. Not sure if I heard Captain America's original theme though. Surprisingly, another really memorable moment is the music accompanying Spider-Man's introduction scene. The triumph as he goes swooping beneath that bridge. It's stuck in my head. There are also some great minimalistic instances with just foreboding drums or complete silence. Without spoiling anything, the ending is grand, exciting, and bold, done right. I understand the complaints about it being only part 1, but honestly, Infinity War has its own pretty clear ending, and I'm actually left really excited to see Avengers 4 next year. I'm glad it's only 1 year wait. Though I wonder, with time travel in the mix, how much of this film will matter later on. Still, after my Thursday night viewing, I watched Infinity War again on Friday night. I'm still thinking about it, with the itch to see it again for a third time with another audience. Avengers Infinity War is a bit convoluted, awkwardly structured, doesn't hold your hand, is abruptly edited, with a little too much humor here and there, a lack of focus, and a simple, stretched out plot to give dozens of characters time to shine, and no Coulson! Or Daredevil. But man, did I have a great time! It's a big 10-year Marvel reunion! All those years, and they pulled it off! And I'm glad I joined them from the beginning. Way back in 2008. I give Avengers Infinity War 4.5 out of 5 stars. Almost love it. Definitely one of my favorite Marvel films, and the most that I've enjoyed a movie in the theaters this year. I need to give Game Night another watch, but this does put a smile on my face. After all of the buildup, I think there's a garbage truck going by. What the? I just started. After all this buildup, I had to wait for the garbage man to go by. Oh no. 8 if you started counting at the post-credit scene for the first Avengers movie. Either way, you'll feel old. This is the ultimate Marvel crossover roller coaster ride. Having said all of that, is that the way it always goes? A big having said all that from AEmovieguy, frick. Lot of tough love incoming! People are getting jacked in this movie. People are getting jacked in this movie! Marvel has guts. Do they have it? Guts. Guts. That's not going in. Infinity War devotes a couple of 5 to 55. Run out of water already. Infinity War is divided. Wait, I don't even know where I am in the script. Hold on. Just give me a minute. Oh, there it is. Okay, I don't have a bookmark. This is a computer. Yeah, maybe I should print out my... That's a waste of paper. You don't need to print out the script. Frick you. We gotta save the planet. To avoid disorientation in Infinity War. What could possibly stop me now? Is that how he sounds? I would have preferred the serious tone be maintained until the title reveal. Ooh, excuse me. Ah! I really am losing my voice. Oh no. Who the hell are you guys? Tony Stark, coping with destiny, finally arrive. Thanos. Way more fleshed out than other Marvel. How about Amoni? But I'm a Cap, and you're a Stark. It could never work. Oh, thank goodness. He's somewhere else. Big, multi-phase action set pieces with this holographic shield. Bing, 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 bing. The man was Ghost Rider at one point. Put him in, coach. He's ready. Bring him back for Avengers 4, please. He must kill Thanos. I give Avengers Infinity War 4.5 snaps out of 5.